business. We pray for guidance and direction that we may be found within your will in all our decisions. We thank you for your blessings upon us, our citizens, and our employees. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, council, looking at the February 24th agenda, our first item under new business, number 4, is to review the agenda for March 3rd. And going to that agenda, you can see what's on the consent agenda. And under, does anyone have any questions about the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, we'll go to new.
I do have, I had a question about the host liquor liability insurance coverage when someone is selling alcohol on the town premises. And so I guess I'd like to have that come off the consent agenda and maybe get clarification on that next Monday.
I think that's a good thing to look at. I really do.
Okay, anybody else? Under number 7, new business, item A, approval of community center ADA construction. Mr. Weichel, sir.
Okay, I'm gonna backtrack to that consent there for the alcohol.
Okay,
What exactly are we looking for? What is it? Who holds the insurance? Is that what we're looking for? Or?
I'm sorry,
I'm not
which
quite
item
clear.
we on now?
The one that we just pulled off of consent. I just need to get some clarification on what we're looking for on that.
The host liquor liability, I'm just, I'd like to get clarification, I guess, that the town's fully covered by insurance if somebody drinks too many beers or too much wine and is injured and there's a suit as a result.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll look into that. As far as I'm understanding, they hold their own insurance for that.
that's
But
what I understand too.
But I'll look into that.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you, Bo. Ready for the next one?
Seems close, doesn't it? Okay. Oh, no. All right, so going into item A, so this would be the ADA work at the community center. This will involve the demolition, building of the ramps and handrails, things like that. This is the grant compliance for the project. The amount listed there is different. I got a new amount this evening, so we'll go over that next Monday. But this is going to stay on here, but that part will update for everybody. So I got some other numbers in about an hour ago, so
Okay,
I'll just have to redo that bottom part.
thank you. Okay,
When would that work be done?
That would be done, we'll give them the notice to proceed as soon as council approves the agreement. So I don't have a timeline on their end, but we'd hope sometime by the end of March that'd be completed.
And that would be paid for by the grant?
It's a 20% match on the grant, so, yeah.
anyone else? Item B, approval of resolution adopting the Unifor Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
So this is something that happens every 5 years. It's a mitigation plan that the North Carolina Emergency Management, they pay for this, so we don't have to pay for it out of our own pocket. It covers Alexander, Burke, and Caldwell and Catawba counties and all the municipalities within that. And really, this is actually important to update right now because we cannot get FEMA reimbursement unless we have this updated plan in place. So, especially right now, it's critical that we get it done so that we can keep processing with our FEMA reimbursements from the storm.
Questions, council?
What do you have to do for that, Bo? What, you have to submit paperwork or what?
It's,
Yeah, it's something that the state puts together, and it's reviewed by the fire chief and the mayor. Well, the mayor, I think you sign off on that, and it's just a mitigation plan.
Okay,
Yeah, gets us up to any codes that have changed since the last plan was adopted.
okay, very good.
anyone else? That'll stay on the agenda, ma'am. Item C, appointments to boards, commissions, and committees. Council, you can see there what positions we have available and what will be addressed Monday at the council meeting. I think the Drug and Homeless Task Force, everyone on there is up for reappointment. And the ABC Board is Mr. Hellman's reappointment. Questions? Item D, approval of resolution withdrawing Lovelady Road Sidewalk Phase 1 project application.
So this was a carryover from the last meeting, the Lovelady Sidewalk Project application withdrawal resolution. I don't have much more to say on that. So we're all familiar with that project, so.
Questions, council? Hearing none, that'll stay on the agenda. Okay, item E, approval of capital project ordinance amendment, Berrytown Waterline Project.
So this is a housekeeping project ordinance amendment. If you recall, we originally were awarded $800,000 for the CDBG NR portion, which is neighborhood revitalization portion of the grant. Since we did the project ordinance, they upped that another $200,000 to $1 million even. So that's what this does, just reflect that change.
Questions, council? Okay, that'll remain on the agenda. Item F, approval of capital project ordinance water plant upgrades.
This is another housekeeping item for this project ordinance. Back when we adopted this, the total amount was $7 million for this. NCDEQ, their administration fee at that time was 3%. Since the project was adopted, they actually lowered that to a 1.5%. So that resulted in $105,000 that was gonna go to them, but can go back in the construction of the project. So that's what this is doing, is just moving that money around.
Questions, council?
Could both of those E and F go on the consent agenda?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I would recommend that.
Okay, E and F will be moved to consent, ma'am. Okay, G, approval of budget amendment, community center compromised water pipe replacement and repairs.
So back on January 27th, there was a water line in the mechanical area of the community center. It developed a hole with the old galvanized lines. It flooded the space. There was probably about knee-deep worth of standing water in there. And when we go over this Monday, I'll have pictures of everything that happened in there, the old pipes that we see. The pipes need replaced, so it'll tear out all the galvanized piping, put in copper piping there. And the total amount, because we've got some damages, the total amount for the budget amendment is $32,000, but a little over 10 of that will be reimbursed by insurance to cover our losses. They're not gonna cover the replacement of the pipe itself, but some of the mechanical equipment, like the water heater HVAC system that got damaged, they're gonna cover those replacements. So net out of pocket would be about $22,000, but the budget amendment is $32,000 for those repairs.
Okay,
Now, is that the one that where the flashing was dripping, or is that the one on the street there beside of it?
Well, you're thinking about the gutter, we talked about, that's a whole different issue. This is the water, the actual water pipes in the basement of the community center.
The rec center,
Okay.
inside.
Oh,
Yeah,
inside. Okay.
inside in the basement.
So it didn't have anything to do with the leak outside?
Right, right. Yeah, this is the water that's supplying the community center, or the lines that supply the water,
Okay,
so,
all right,
yeah.
very good.
And could you explain this one more time, because I've had a couple people asking why we're going with copper and not, I know you explained it I can't remember if it was in the meeting or in an email, why we can't go with something other than the copper in replacing.
Yeah, so code in a commercial building like that, code requires a metal piping in there.
Okay.
So our only really options there are either copper or stainless steel. Stainless steel would be way too much money. So copper is a more economical route. We asked about PVC, and that's what we were told is code, they wouldn't pass code if they didn't have a metal pipe in there. So we definitely don't want to go back with galvanized though.
No, no.
All right.
Okay, anybody else? That'll remain on the agenda. Okay, 8, financial performance indicator of concern.
So when the LGC was going through our audit, they reviewed that. There was only one thing that they threw out of there, and this is a common thing throughout all of North Carolina, but it's the capital assets condition ratio that they do. So anything that falls below 0.5 on their scale, they give it's not a bad thing. It's just they're notifying us. They call it an indicator of concern. So 0.45 is where our numbers were on that. So we're only 0.05 away from their threshold limit. But basically what this tells us is it's a ratio that measures the useful life of the depreciable assets in our system. So if we're below that 0.5 mark, it's just basically saying that we have old equipment and infrastructure. The way to remedy that is to invest in new infrastructure and get those newer things in there. So that's kind of what this ratio is telling us, is that we have aging equipment. They want us to be aware of that. So the process when they pull something like this is it has to be notified to the board, and then there's a form that everybody will sign just to acknowledge. There's no action item on this. There's just a form everybody will sign. I'll send it back to LGC and just tell them that we talked about it and the council was made aware of that concern.
Questions?
So we will address this in the budgeting process. We got some big projects coming up on horizon that'll put some new sewer, new water pipes in the ground, and that should help bring that ratio up.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Item I, pool structure design build discussion.
All right, so the pool structure, this is on the agenda to present the idea of a design build process for the pool structure. We know the bids came back, it exceeded 1.8 million just for the construction portion. So as an alternative approach, we can explore, just an idea that the council want to explore design build. It would be a similar process to what we're doing for public safety right now. We'd go through the RFQ process for a general contractor, and they would bring in their own team, and we would contract directly with them, and we wouldn't deal with the architect at that point. We own the construction document still, so that would be useful to them, but they would still look at it and look at all options of how they can design that project to be more cost effective.
Very good.
Questions?
So that is an option to go with.
Okay.
What kind of schedule would that lead us to? I think this item had been deferred for 6 months, which would probably put it on May or June agenda.
Right, so design build process it's a process. So if we pick this back up in June, we would work on the RFQ, get that approved by council, send that out. Then we go through an evaluation process for submittals like we're doing right now. And then we negotiate a contract with the GC and bring them on board. So you're still looking at, that process could take 2 months. So you may not have a contract in place to start the work until September, October. and it'll take them probably 4 months to get the work done. So even with this process, you still would lose swimming for next winter. But you would still lose it with the current process we're in too, so.
As I recall, the contract that we looked at the last time had an 8-month completion schedule. So if we had a contract in September, that means it would be completed by April or May.
Probably March, yeah, I would say March maybe.
So no swimming next winter.
Probably not if we went through this process and did it, with the design build and RFQ, because it does take some time to interview those firms and select one.
You shared some information about the direct replacement bubble with the council. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yeah, I don't have my notes in front of me, but as another option that we looked at last summer was the dome replacement from Yeadon. So that we did ask them to get us some updated numbers on that. They sent those over last week. So that is another option that can be discussed along with this design build. So you basically have 3 options. You can stick with where we're at right now with the architect, but we'd have to rebid the project, so that's gonna probably be a couple thousand more, just architect fees that would go through that process again. We can abandon that and go with the design build process, or we can look again at the dome structure that we got new numbers on. So those are kind of the 3 that we've got to look at.
Couple questions I have about the dome. The grant money only lets us put up an aluminum frame structure, is that correct?
That is correct, as at this time, that's the way it reads.
Okay.
That's something that we can consider of looking into to try to see if we can get that amended, but,
Yeah.
in the past, it was not, but, that is something that we can look into.
Yeah. And then also, I think I read somewhere that you said it was gonna be like $55,000 a year to take that thing down and put it up, the bubble?
Yeah, so, as a service from Yeadon Domes, they would, offer to inflate it, set all that up and bring it down every year. So total about 55,000 on that.
So 10 years, that's $500,000, isn't it?
Yeah, so the bubble, or I keep calling it a bubble, but it's really a dome structure.
Right.
It's about $1.2 million less than what the option that we're looking at right now is with the aluminum frame.
Right.
So, the 1.2 million, if we had that gaining interest, say we didn't spend that money, but gaining interest on it, it'd be about a wash, of gaining about 54,000 interest a year on that.
Okay,
So,
makes sense.
and the reason for having them offer that service to us is because of the manpower it takes to get it up and the danger it causes. So, to keep the bubble in good shape, that's what
I think my brother had told me that you all had used prison labor in the past.
In the past, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not,
Would that still be available, or?
no, they kind of ended that program.
Okay.
The last year or 2 that we were putting that up, they weren't available anymore,
Yeah.
so.
I think we had 1 or 2 people injured in putting or taking down that bubble.
Yeah.
Town employees.
Yeah.
Has the Parks and Recreation Commission met to consider where they're going with the recommendations?
Not that I'm aware of.
I
Okay,
think we've got a meeting on March the 10th.
okay.
Yeah, I'm
We were
just
supposed to
putting
have
these-
one last week and it was canceled. But we got one coming up.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is something they can discuss too, but I just wanted to get this in front of council as well, because I know it's been a hot topic and we are actively thinking about it and trying to formulate a plan.
So the dome, you're saying would save $1.2 million. We basically put that into a bank to work for us to pay for the labor of taking it down and putting it back up each year. Is that where that, in a nutshell?
Yeah, or you
Okay.
could spin it another way, if that leaves us 1.2 million to put towards another project.
Yeah.
Such as public safety, that we wouldn't have to borrow more money on.
Yeah.
So, and pay interest on that money. So either way, you're saving some money, whether you're gaining it through interest or saving it through interest.
So there is a potential that we could save money to put towards something else and make like a larger group of Valdese, like a lot of Valdese happy instead of like one group or the other. It's really something to look at if it's gonna save that kind of money and be a place where people could, we wanna get the winter swimming back. So, it looks like kind of definitely something to think about. It looks like a win-win in my opinion, but.
And I know I shared those numbers with council, but if anybody in the public wants to talk to me about that as well, I'll be happy to talk to them.
But once again, we won't be able to use the grant that we have, probably.
As of right now, we won't.
No.
Or the $100,000 matching donation that was part of the grant.
That's, the donors had put that towards the permanent structure. If the dome came to fruition, we can look at that again.
So how much are we saving really with, sorry,
That's okay.
if we go with the dome, how much are we saving if we take away, because I know we're still getting that chunk to use for ADA work, which was what the grant was originally written for, is to do the ADA
Right.
compliance work. So how much could you send out something or let us know how much we are saving still if we do not have that grant?
Yeah.
I think it was
So-
in the email he sent out earlier this week, wasn't it? Or
Yeah,
last
it
week?
was around 1.2 million.
So it's still, even if we don't use the grant, we're still saving $1.2 million.
If we don't use the grant, I'll have to look at those again.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's still
Okay.
a large
Councilwoman-
savings.
Can we use the grant for the ADA if we don't use the rest of the grant on the pool structure, is my question.
Yes, we can. I
You
did get that
can?
answer. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, so regardless of what we do, we can still use the grant for the ADA work.
okay.
Yeah, good question.
But now, Councilwoman Loman, you said that something about we can't use the grant for what? When you asked the question?
I just said we can't use it for the dome.
The ADA grant, is that what you're talking?
I asked if we could still use the ADA part of the grant
Okay.
if we don't use the other part of the grant.
But
And he
now-
says, yes, we can.
Now, the other 500,000, could possibly be amended to use that, is that correct?
It would be, so there'd be about 380,000 left or so after we did the ADA work. So whether it can be amended or not, I'm not sure.
Who
Still
would
looking
you
at that.
see about?
We'd have to talk to the granting agency, the
Okay.
state, yeah. So that's something that's still up in limbo right now.
Okay.
But I do know for sure that we can use the ADA portion to do the work now.
Okay,
Yeah.
very good.
So, the dome, when could it be put up?
So the Eden Dome said their lead time is 6 months. So whenever they're given a notice to proceed, it would take them 6 months from that point. So the construction timing is about the same whether you do a permanent structure versus the dome. There is some site work to do, concrete work, but it's just the timing of when it would get approved is, I think, the key
Do we have to
factor.
go through the RFQ and RFP and all that if we purchase this dome?
So on the dome, no, the dome is on a cooperative purchasing agreement through Sourcewell, so we wouldn't have to do a competitive bidding process on that. That's already been done through state law, we're allowed to piggyback off of that cooperative purchasing agreement and forego all those steps.
So if we were to decide next week to go with the dome, how soon could we sign the contract to get it underway? Next day?
Pretty much, yeah.
So 6 months from that would be, 6 months from March 3 would be
September-ish.
September 3?
Mhm.
We gain a whole year of swimming?
What's that?
We'd gain a whole winter of swimming?
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
I have another question on the finances. So if we forego the grant, went with the dome. I think in your message to us, you said we would be saving about $1.2 million, and I think you said, and I heard you repeat it tonight, that the interest on that would roughly cover the cost to hire the dome company to put it up and take it down every year. Is there any other advantage to keeping that $1.2 million in our funds rather than paying it ahead, paying the installation cost ahead by shelling it out now? Like, what I'm thinking of is when we go to get USDA loans or something else for $3 or $4 or $5 or $6 million to build a public safety building, is there any advantage to having that $1.2 million in our investments rather than having spent it?
Yeah, anytime you can have, the more cash flow liquidity you got, the better. Even going through USDA loan, there's a lot of money that we're gonna have to front, you know, as before we can get approval. There's studies we gotta get done for USDA. So the more funds we have available for things like that, the faster things progress. So there is an advantage to having those cash on hand for that stuff. But
Anyone else? Okay, that'll stay on the agenda, ma'am. Item J, year-to-date financials.
So this will be, like we did last month. There will be an attachment. I know it says at the end that there's no attachments, but there will be an attachment. It will be the expenditures and revenues to date through January, and then as well as the tax collections through January. So I just put some highlights there. You know, we'll be 58% through the year, so that'd be 7 months. So just kind of compare that to the percentages on here. And utility fund is low, 44.08%, but that's gonna happen. Like the aerator project has not happened yet. It's still being designed. So that's, once those funds and start going out, that number will increase. But, so this is more for council, just to kind of review. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask them then. But this is just kind of a update of where we're at in the year. I really don't do a full-blown analysis until, you know, I do one at 50% of the year and then one at 75% of the year, which would be through March. So in between, I really don't get too in the weeds of stuff, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council? Okay, hearing none, we go to item K, that'll stay on the agenda, please. Item K, status of ongoing and approved projects. Mr. Weichel.
Public safety project update, okay. So currently, we're, the review panel is reviewing the statement of qualifications that were submitted to us. Remember, we had 7 contractors send those in. They have a scoring sheet that they're scoring these contractors based on a set criteria evaluation. Everybody's using the same, that's why it's consistent across the board. Once I get all those back, they're gonna send those back to me by the end of the month. I'll compile all those into a scoring matrix. It'll score, get a numerical score to each contractor. We'll go through with the review panel again to verify that's what everybody consensus is. That will be about early March, and then once we get those top 2 or 3 firms, we're going to go ahead and schedule some interviews. And the goal would be to have a contract presented to council at the May 5th meeting. So that gives us some time to go through the legal process, let Attorney Swanson kind of go back and forth to make sure everything's kosher there. So that would be through the month of April, and then May 5th would have that.
Contract for the council to review at the May meeting? Is that what you said?
Yeah, for phase 1, just the phase 1
phase one,
contract.
okay.
Yeah.
And fill us in again on what phase 1 will include?
Sure. Phase 1 is, it looks at 3 different items. It would be the renovating the 215 Main Street building. It would, and then in conjunction, it would look at building a new fire station at the lot across the street. And then it would look at a combined building, so not renovating over there, but building a combined building over here. And then that would be a 30% schematic design level. So basically, they go through 30% of the design and then give us a budgetary number based on that and which one, how much each would cost.
And they'll have pretty firm estimates on what that would cost, what
Right.
each of those would cost at
Right.
that time.
Because they would be the ones doing the work.
Right.
That's the beauty of the design build is they're not, it's not an architect guessing what a contractor's gonna bid. They're actually the ones gonna be doing the work, so they'll have a lot more solid number for that.
And when do we expect to get, when would we expect them to have that phase one, those numbers back to the council?
I don't know for sure. That's something we can ask them when we present the contract, but I would guess it's gonna take them, to do all three items in that phase, it's probably gonna take a good couple months.
How long?
Probably 2 or 3 months.
2 or 3 months?
Yeah,
August, September, something like that.
yeah.
Anyone else? Okay, water plant upgrades project, sir.
Okay, so nothing's really changed since the last update, so we just kind of left this as the last update that we had. Just to refresh your memory, they're out there doing some surveys, doing some drafting work. The big thing is we're waiting on the city of Lenore still to determine where they're gonna put their pump station, so. Once they determine that, then, the designer can keep moving forward with the rest of the project, so.
And next is the town manager search process, and I'll have a report on that for Monday's council meeting. Okay, interim manager's report, you can see all that there, which I'm sure Mr. White will cover next Monday. And unless someone has something else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor signify by saying yes.
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 So be it. Thank you.